Good afternoon and welcome to your Science Review with Mr. Blades. Today I'm here with Meredith King. She's our department chair here at Jersey Village. Say hi.
Hi.
You're looking a little embarrassed. Are you
I'm not, I'm just laughing.
Ah, fair. Ms. King is our department chair here for science at Jersey Village. Why don't you tell us your background, educational, and how you came to teaching?
Okay, so this is my 12th year at Jersey Village. This is my second year as department chair. Before that, I was the team leader for the electives. I've taught AP Environmental Science, Aquatic Science, and on-level Environmental Science, or some combination thereof. I have a degree, a Bachelor of Science in Marine Biology, and a Master's of Education in Curriculum Instruction and Secondary Science Education. I just always wanted to teach, and so I ended up here, and this is my 12th year, and I've liked it, so I stayed.
Fair. And what's your favorite class to teach so far?
I actually like all three of them. There's pieces of all three of those classes that I enjoy, so I don't know that I actually have a favorite, but I enjoy teaching all three of them for different reasons. Okay.
Well, this year for Jersey Village and Sci-Fair in general, technology has been a big push and getting it into the classroom. How have you seen technology change the profession of teaching in the time that you've been here? Because you've been here just long enough to see like the rise of the internet and see it start infiltrating into the profession of teaching. So how has it changed the profession of teaching?
Well, when I started, we were still using overhead transparencies, and I had a computer, but the kids didn't really have access to computers. There weren't really a lot of smartphones when I started. In fact, there weren't any. It was all flip phones, and all they were using was for texting.
T9 protective text and everything.
So through the years, we have increased our use of computers in the classroom, where the main source of the main use of the computers was internet research. So they used a lot for the internet, and then as we're increasing our technology, as the district is putting it in there, we're starting to increase them actually being able to use the computers for other things like programming and different software programs and using probes and things like that. I also personally embrace their use of telephones because I figure if they're going to have them out, then I'm going to make them use them for something I want instead of them just texting. So it's a progression, but it's a work in progress. It always is.
And especially for the phones, like it's not about changing how they interact with the world, but like teaching to how they interact with the world.
Well, and a lot of people say that this generation or these group of kids are very tech savvy, but they're not. They know how to use their phones for social media. They know how to research and hit Google or Wikipedia, but they don't actually know how to use Microsoft Word in its maximum capacity, or Excel, or do proper research on some things. So they don't know how to maximize the electronic resource they have available to them, and that's what we're trying to increase.
I've had to teach my kids just how to send emails.
Yes.
And like share stuff on Google Documents.
Yes.
I'd be like, how do I do that?
Google Doc is still a new concept for them, though. That's something that's coming, and probably in the next 5 years, your kids will be much more proficient because the district is starting with 6th graders. So by the time they get up here, then you're going to see a lot more of that proficiency because they're doing it in classes and it's becoming more regular. But right now, we're at the very beginning of it, so we're teaching kids how to do it. Well, I mean, 2 years ago, I had to learn how to use a Google Doc. I'd never done it, but I'm very familiar with Word, so it was relatively easy for me.
And which of all the things that you've just discussed, which of those things do you think is going to be the most impactful to education as a whole?
High school or like post-secondary?
Either one. Which one do you think is going to have the biggest impact?
I think them actually using the computer as a legitimate tool, not just a basis of internet research, is going to be more beneficial for them, because any job that they have, whether it be working at McDonald's, working at Amazon, working at a warehouse, working in a professional aspect, going to college, they're going to have to be able to use some kind of electronic programming. So they're going to have to do something that's outside of just social media and hitting Google. So being able to be proficient at Word, or even knowing how to log on to a computer correctly, or using a search function on a computer, those kind of things are going to be more beneficial to them, but it has to be something that they use regularly in all of their classes across the board, so that it's not just one period every so often and they forget it again.
Okay. And do you think science education is particularly benefited or harmed from this shift? A lot of people lament how it's all technology, it's less focused on the lecture model that most of us went through when we got our degrees and stuff. So do you think science education is going to be elevated or taken down?
I think it depends on the teacher. I think you don't have to necessarily have the lecture model. I think lecture is absolutely important, and there are days that I have to do it. But then, because our students are changing and the way they learn is changing, I think as teachers we have to change to match them to a point. We can't bring them back to a way that they don't understand. We have to move forward as teachers, and I think as teachers sometimes that's harder than them adjusting to us. I think it's our job to be able to teach them in the capacity they're at, but we have to prepare them for their future, and their future is not the same as it was for us. Like, we have to adjust to what they need, not the other way around.
And for us in particular, we're not that old. Like, it's
We're
our
not-
future
no.
too.
It absolutely is, and it's not that old, but when I think back to when I was in high school and when I was in college, I was taught very lecture-based, not even that much PowerPoint. It was very lecture-based. There wasn't a lot of paper. I took notes on a piece of notebook paper every single day. I had my spirals. That was how I learned. That was how my teachers taught. Well, now my kids, whether, I don't know, am I doing a disservice because their writing isn't as great, but then it takes me 3 times as long, where I can post it on a classroom. They have access to it. They can read it. They can ask me questions about it, and they can get the information and we can move forward.
Awesome.
So it's kind of a hit or miss.
Have you seen any effect to your classroom management? Has that been more or less complicated, or?
No, I think phones are always phones, and that's always the biggest challenge. Is it doesn't matter whether it was 12 years ago or whether it was today. The kids are going to be on their phones. I think your classroom management has to match your personality, and you have to start with it. I'm not saying you have to, lay down the law the very first day, but you have to set your expectations, and you have to hold your kids to that, because they know they've been in different classrooms every year. They know that they have to do what their teacher wants.
What of these new technological developments, which has been the most exciting for you, either to learn or to implement or to see your kids interact with?
I think doing the collaborative work on things like Google Forms and Google Classrooms, because I can watch them work at the same time and it's an instantaneous feedback for them. And I like seeing them learn new things, because and I do it more in my AP class, because the AP College Board has higher standards for their technology base when they get out, and Excel is a big one that they want them to be able to use. So I have a couple of labs where I could just have them write the data on a piece of paper. I just have them convert it to Excel. I also did it in my aquatics class this year. Instead of just having them make graphs by hand, I had them enter the data into a Google Sheet and then create a graph. So they were learning how to make a graph on Google Sheets, and then they could just turn it into me electronically. It was less papers for me. It's also a great accountability, because the kids can't say, well, I didn't do it, I didn't turn it in.
Or they can say, I turned it in already. I can go,
yeah,
well,
I turned it in already. Well,
no,
I
it
have an
says you turned it
electronic
in at
copy
midnight.
of it. Yeah, so I have an electronic copy of it. It is a little more difficult sometimes for me to grade. It's easier in that I don't have to decipher handwriting. It's more time consuming, and when I put comments on it, the kids aren't getting a piece of paper back, so they actually have to go back and look at it.
Yeah.
That's a part that I haven't mastered yet, because I know they're not going back to look at it. Not that they read my comments when I put a piece of paper out there anyways, they just wanted to see the grade.
and after a while, they'll just get used to that. That'll just be where you go. You don't
Yeah.
look for your paper anymore. You'll
But
just
again,
check it online.
it's the beginning, and those kind of things are coming, and so
Yeah.
we're kind of in a transition for probably, I would guess, the next 5 years until we get the group that has done this since they entered middle school, and it's become more of a standard. So I think we'll see an increase of it more and more, where it's a little easier. The kids already know their logins. The kids already know this, or there's a little piece that they already know that we can move past. And I think it's just going to be, it's going to be a progression, just like any kind of change.
I actually have experienced a lot of traction with even my poorer students, because even amongst our poorer students, almost everyone has a cell phone, and a lot of our kids work. So I like that we've sort of decentralized in time the content, either from YouTube videos or being able to work on it. And like now you can work with your group via Google Docs. And you don't even have to be working at the same time or in the same place. Like you can share it with your group, and you can rewrite your lab report.
And that is a learning process for them, any kind of collaborative active worksheet like that, because if they don't realize that any change they make shows up on everybody else's, that's definitely a learning process. But it is beneficial, because if they don't have time in class, they have access, they can comment, because if you get on an active Google Sheet and you all log in at the same time, you can write comments to each other and you can talk, or they can all be on the phone. So it does free up that whole group meeting, or those things that used to be where we'd have to all meet at somebody's house, or it is a lot more freeing and flexible. And even because we have a predominantly we're pretty much a Title I school, we have a large population of economically disadvantaged students, and they do have phones, and that is something they have access to. So
One of my earliest mistakes with the whole thing was last year I had a parent questionnaire on Google Classroom, and instead of sharing the form that they could put the stuff in, I shared the underlying document. And so instead of answering anything, everybody just edited it. And so
Yeah.
when I checked it the next morning, it was completely unrecognizable.
yes.
As this push for tech in the classroom grows, do you think the role of the teacher will change in the classroom?
Yes and no. I think there's always going to be a need for a teacher. I don't care. It doesn't matter how much technology there is, because there's always going to be somebody who needs guidance and needs help. Because at the end of the day, we can put assignments and we can put some videos, but I don't think anybody's going to replace the knowledge and the background skills and the just what we have to offer the
mentorship.
kids. Yeah, the mentor, the building the relationships, the making a kid want to come to school, the making them want to do work for you for nothing else than the fact that they like you. Because sometimes that's the only reason I get kids to do work is they like me and I harass them enough and they do it for me, you know. And I don't think that, I think technology is a great thing and a plus, but you have to have that human interaction, or else I think there's no reason for it. You have to have that reason to work, and sometimes that is just your teacher.
And lastly, have you seen it change your role in your classroom much at this very early stage?
No, I've just been trying to integrate it more in a way that makes it useful and respectful to my kids and not just a time filler. So I don't think that my function has changed. I just think that I'm having to find ways to integrate it so that they know and they understand, but that it's useful for me and for them also.
Excellent. Well, thank you for coming by to discuss things with us.
No problem.
This was a lot of fun. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you in class.